Gotta ask, did you guess it right? Did you guess the new pope would be an American and would take the name Leo the 14th? I don't have a great track record with papal predictions, but I want to let you know that in an odd way, I got this half right, and I have reasonable hopes of being more right in the future. Stick with me. I have a story to tell you. Hi, I'm Jesuit Father Robert McTeigue, host every day of the Catholic Current via the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. Let's take a closer look. Glad you're here. Let me tell you about my history of papal predictions, papal prognostications. When John Paul II lay dying in 2005, I was reading a book by George Weigel called The Cube in the Cathedral. And I had the inspiration, if you can call it that, as reading the book. I said, John Paul's going to die soon. The only one who can fill his shoes is going to be Cardinal Ratzinger, and he's going to take the name Benedict. I think that was a pretty easy guess. That was slow pitch, maybe even T-ball. Comes time for the next papacy. Woke up one morning and had a text message from a dear friend in London who said, "What's this about the Pope resigning?" And I said, "Oh, David, you can't believe everything you read on the internet. Cut that out. Popes don't resign. Hasn't happened in centuries." Completely wrong about that. Then people would say, "Who do you think the next Pope would be? Do you think it'll be a Jesuit?" And I said, "Oh, no, no. Here are all these good reasons why there'll never be a Jesuit Pope." Went into the church to hear confessions. When I came out a few hours later, my phone was on fire. Surprise, it was a Jesuit Pope. And he took the name Francis. And I said, "Well, of course. Isn't it obvious?" He took the name Francis Xavier for the great Jesuit missionary, because after all, no Jesuit Pope would take the name Francis of Assisi. Got that wrong. Now it's time for new conclave, and people are asking me, who do you think it's going to be? Who do you want it to be? And I explained that, again, thinking I was taking the easy way out, that, well, I'll tell you it's not going to be. It's not going to be an American for all these reasons. Who would you like it to be? And my answer, which I thought was terribly clever, was to say, I'll gladly support any man who takes the name Leo the 14th. Why did I say that? Well, part of it was because I thought it would just never happen. Leo the 13th, who is expected to govern as a progressive, has become a superhero rock star among traditional Catholics. No one is going to take that name, even if you have the traditional dream of Cardinal Sarah or Cardinal Burke. Not going to take the name Leo the 14th. And after all, neither of those cardinals would get elected. And here we are now with an American, an Augustinian friar, who took the name Leo the 14th. Well, what's the big deal about that? What's in a name? Well, in Latin, we say nomen est omen, that the name, in a certain sense, predicts or is a harbinger of the future. What's past is prologue. When a man selects a papal name from history, he wants to be associated with that name, and usually, especially, the last person to bear that name. So there's something about Leo. There's been 13 before. We don't have time to go through all 13, but I'll say this much. Pope Leo I was also known as Pope Leo the Great for very many reasons. You can look that up yourself. Pope during the 5th century. Here's what I want to do. I want to offer you just one sentence out of his very amazing many sermons that we have. He said this: "The devil is always discovering something novel against the truth." How? There's always some kind of new angle to cheat or distort or to hide the truth. And my hope for Pope Leo the 14th is he'll take special inspiration from his predecessor, the eponym of his name, Leo the First, Leo the Great, and be on guard against novelties set in opposition to the truth. And his recent statements about artificial intelligence lead me to believe that he might be on the ball there. Let's jump ahead to Leo X. Why is he important? Well, he's a very Renaissance pope, and he was pope when Martin Luther in 1517 broke from the church and led to the Protestant calamity. Some people call it Reformation. I'm Catholic. It was the Protestant calamity. And who started the Protestant calamity? Martin Luther, who was, like Pope Leo XIV, an Augustinian friar. And Leo X said this. He said, the papacy is not a place to be taken lightly. It is a burden and a blessing. Well, yes. If you looked at the close-ups when he was on the loggia being introduced to the world as Pope Leo XIV, you saw a tear in his eye. You saw he was moved. You'd have to be a cinder block not to be overwhelmed as the mantle of Peter is put on your shoulders. And it feels, rightly so, like a very heavy, heavy cross. So I hope, following the example of Leo X, Leo XIV will continue to pray earnestly and will earnestly ask for the prayers of others. And I really hope that we step up and intercede for him mightily. And now, Leo XIII, a hero of mine, obviously. He's known especially for his encyclical called Rerum Novarum, which literally means on new things. So here we are at the Industrial Revolution. Workers are being exploited and abused as never before. The so-called solutions to the workers' difficult problems, the labor question, as it was called, was communism and socialism and revolution and so on. And Leo says, no, no, no. It doesn't have to be that way. And here is the wisdom of the church, rooted in both charity and justice. Leo wrote a whole lot of things. I very highly recommend that you get a collection of Leo's encyclicals, get out your highlighter and your notebook, and just be amazed as you read through this very prolific pope. But here's what Leo said. He said, nothing emboldens the wicked so greatly as the lack of courage on the part of the good. So I hope that Pope Leo the XIV, through the intercession of Leo the XIII, will go forward with a sense of boldness, a sense of courage, a sense of urgency, because the church has enemies on the outside and on the inside. There are many people who are baptized who are lukewarm, who are confused, who are lost, and the sheep need to be called by name. They need to be brought into the one direction in behind the footsteps and the voice of the one great true shepherd who is Christ himself, who means to lead his flock to our Father's home, our only true home, where already a banquet is prepared for us. So let's agree that we're going to give this poor man, Pope Leo XIV, time to let his mind and heart as Pope be revealed to the world through his actions and through his words. And meanwhile, let's intercede. Let's intercede through the intercession of our Blessed Mother, of St. Augustine, and of all the good popes in heaven, that Leo XIV will live a life worthy of his calling and worthy of his name. Think on these things today, take them to prayer, and talk about them with those you love. Go in peace, and please do pray for me, for I am a sinner. Thanks for watching today. I release new videos on Mondays and Wednesdays. Check out the archives for more videos. You can listen to my podcast at stationofthecross.com, and you can find my written work at heraldofthegospel.org. See you next time.